I've always been a nature enthusiast, fascinated by the intricate lives of spiders. Growing up, I spent countless hours observing them in my backyard, marveling at their webs glistening in the morning dew. When I decided to rent a secluded cabin in the woods for a month to escape the city, I envisioned peaceful days spent hiking and photographing wildlife. I had no idea that my love for nature would lead me into a nightmare. The cabin was rustic but charming, surrounded by tall trees and the soothing sounds of nature. The first few days were perfect. I explored the nearby trails, took photos of the landscapes, and set up a small workspace to capture the spiders I found in the cabin. Each evening I admired their webs, intricate and beautiful. But on the third night I awoke to a faint scratching sound. At first I dismissed it as the wind or perhaps a rodent. However, the noise persisted, gnawing at my nerves. I sat up in bed, heart racing, and decided to investigate. Grabbing my flashlight, I crept out of bed and scanned the room. My light caught movement in the corner. A large spider, easily the size of my palm, scurried across the floor and vanished under the bed. I felt a chill run down my spine. It was an unsettling sight, but I convinced myself it was just a common house spider. I returned to bed, trying to push my unease aside. The following morning, I discovered a thick web in the corner of the room. It was larger and more complex than any I had ever seen. Intrigued, I took a few photographs, fascinated by its design. But as the days wore on, the scratching noises returned, louder and more insistent. Each night I'd catch glimpses of the large spider, always just out of sight, but its presence loomed heavy in the air. One night, unable to sleep, I decided to confront my fears. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside, hoping to find the large spider. The moon was bright, casting eerie shadows among the trees. I called out into the darkness, "Show yourself!" Silence enveloped me, and just as I began to doubt myself, I heard a rustling in the underbrush. My heart raced as I aimed my flashlight at the sound. To my horror, I saw not just the large spider, but a swarm of smaller spiders moving toward me, their legs moving in unison. Panic surged through me. I turned and bolted back into the cabin, slamming the door behind me. The scratching sounds grew louder, a relentless chorus echoing in my mind. I felt trapped, the web of my own imagination tightening around me. The next morning, I woke up exhausted. I ventured outside, hoping the fresh air would clear my mind, but when I looked around, I noticed something that sent a wave of dread through me. The web in the corner of the cabin had grown larger, now resembling a chaotic tapestry. I quickly gathered my things, determined to leave. As I reached for the door, I felt a chill. I turned to see the large spider blocking my exit, its many eyes glistening in the light. I stumbled back, heart racing, realizing my fear had drawn me into its world. The spider's presence felt suffocating, as if it were toying with me. In a panic, I dashed toward the window, but it was too late. A mass of smaller spiders surged from the shadows, cascading down the walls like a dark wave. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the silence of the woods. I managed to wrench the door open and escape into the open air. But as I ran, I felt the ground shift beneath me. I stumbled and fell, my hands sinking into the soft earth. I looked up to see the swarm of spiders pouring down from the trees, a living, breathing nightmare. I scrambled to my feet and sprinted toward my car, fumbling for my keys. My heart raced as I finally got the door open and jumped inside. I cranked the engine, praying it would start, and drove away from the cabin, not daring to look back. Once I reached the nearest town, I stopped at a diner to collect myself. The waitress eyed me warily as I ordered coffee, my hands still shaking. When I mentioned the spiders, she frowned. "You're not the first to have trouble in those woods," she said quietly. "There's something about them. They seem to attract more than just animals." That night I checked into a motel, desperate for rest. As I lay in bed, I could still feel the spiders lurking in my mind, the sensation of tiny legs crawling over my skin. I thought I had escaped, but the fear clung to me like a shadow. The next day, I decided to return to the cabin to retrieve my belongings, convinced I could face my fears one last time. I drove back, each mile filled with dread. When I arrived, the cabin stood eerily silent. As I entered, the air felt thick with tension. The web had grown even larger, sprawling across the room. I grabbed my things quickly, my hands trembling, but as I turned to leave, I felt a sudden chill. The large spider appeared, blocking my path. It was now or never. I took a deep breath and dashed past it, not looking back as I sprinted to my car. I drove away, my heart pounding, vowing never to return. In the weeks that followed, I tried to put the experience behind me. But even back in the city, I felt the echoes of my fear. At night, I could almost hear the faint scratching, the sensation of tiny legs crawling over my skin. I realized then that my fascination with nature had turned into a true nightmare, a lesson that some boundaries should never be crossed. If you find yourself in those woods, heed my warning. The spiders are not just creatures of the night. They are the guardians of their realm, and once you step into their territory, they may never let you leave.